Greetings, kindred spirits. So the saga continues, and it was always going to be intense this side of the year, and I think it's proving to be that. But there's a lot of positive stuff happening as well, which is really good, and it's really what we take from it and how we take that forward. So let's start with the full moon. So we have a micro moon, which means the moon is furthest away from the earth at this point. And the full moon will reach its peak in Pisces in the true lifetime sky on October 1st at 22:05 in the GMT time zone, at 17:05 in the EDT time zone, and on October the 2nd at 7:05 in the AEDT time zone. So the moon in Pisces tends to be a very sensitive and also an extremely psychic moon, but it's a moon where emotional boundaries are normally needed. So our moon will also be in conjunct to Chiron, the wounded healer, and really that just adds to the sensitivity, especially for those who are confused or are in the process of healing, some deep abandonment issues or emotional wounds from childhood. And our moon, Sun and Chiron will also be creating a grand aspect called the T-square, with our moon and Chiron in opposition to our sun. And all three are in square to the goddess Pallas. This combination shows a deep healing is needed, when it comes to facing some deep wounds or certain truths about our lives or our situations, and that can be very triggering. The triggers, though, don't just come from this grand aspect alone, because Mercury, who has already entered into the shadow of his retrograde mode, and that occurred on September the 23rd, will be in conjunction to the goddess Juno and in opposition to Mars, who is currently retrograding through Pisces. Also the black moon Lilith, the caster of shadows, and Uranus, who is currently retrograding through Aries, shows that a lot of upheaval and differences of opinions can escalate because of the triggering effect, that they're emitting. Not to say that it's necessarily a bad thing, because, we do all have a voice. But what we do need to watch out for is the words or the attitude we use in our communications, because Mercury, Mars and Uranus are all in retrograde. So it does also apply to how we are communicating with ourselves. What are we telling ourselves? What is it we are avoiding in coming to terms with? The picture is definitely becoming clearer. It's just down to how we absorb information that is the key here. Will we surrender to the truth? Or will we come into it kicking and screaming? The choice is yours. We will also have a Yod in formation on this day. Actually, this Yod will be in effect at least up until the new moon on the 16th of October. This Yod is a formation of the moon's north node in sextile to the goddess Vesta, and both are in that quincunx aspect to Pluto, who is about to finish his retrograde in Sagittarius on October the 4th. So this particular Yod is all about love and passion on one hand, and destruction on the other. So our passions can be too intense at this time, which leads us into some sort of sacrifice or elimination of the opportunities that are being presented to us as a collective. The opportunities coming in are for us to truly align with our own inner sacred truth, with the respect and wisdom that is very much needed at this time. And last but not least, we also have a grand Chi aspect. And this particular Chi is made up of a combination of elements. Fire, water, and ether are the elements that will be the flow of the kite's energy. And that will need a lot of grounding, especially since the element of air sits at the top of the kite, and there's fire at the bottom. So, at least it's going to be an up and away kite that's probably going to go on for a little while. And actually, I think it does when I was looking at towards the end of the month. So actually, the only element missing in this particular kite is the earth element. So I feel a lot of grounding techniques will be needed, at least throughout the rest of this month. The good thing about this particular kite is that it brings in a great opportunity towards ascension. And that ascension is more in the understanding of humanitarian values and like self-awareness and an awareness of our environment. This is another opportunity for us to align with our own personal uniqueness and value ourselves not for what we have or don't have, but for who we are as an individual. We all have something to bring to the table in one way or another. So apart from that, I can also see a lot of excitement too with this kite. Although, it's a divided energy where some will be full of beans and others will be a bit deflated. In a way, I see this like a changing of the guards, so to speak. So if you're feeling drained, emotional, or triggered, then take a day off from whatever it is you're doing and bring yourself back to you. Because, as one person rise, another person has to take a back seat, and it is to recharge our batteries. And if you feel you need to do that, do it. The world's not going to fall apart without you. So, and believe me, I need to listen to my own advice at times. So Pluto, he's been retrograding through Sagittarius since the 25th of April. And his retrograde will come to an end on October 4th, as I said before, around 13:30 in the GMT time zone. So whilst Pluto's energy has been affecting us on more of an inner level, he will slowly start to reflect that energy into our external world. And in Sagittarius, it does represent a complete loss of faith from many. But at the same time, his aim is always to replace what is no longer needed with something new. He also represents the depth of the soul. So this is all about rebirthing the truth in some way. So I would say, let's watch that space. The thing I would say to watch out for is aggressive and impulsive behaviour, especially since he is in square to Mars, who is retrograding through Pisces. And Mars is feeling pretty inadequate about his masculinity right now. So really, it can be about the ego and a bit of muscle flexing. This energy has been around for a little while now anyway. But because Pluto is still in conjunction with Jupiter and Saturn, although not exact, they are all in square too to Mars, which just emphasises that the unevolved masculine is about to hit rock bottom. Although that's a devastating process for him to go through, it does mean that once he faces his true identity, he will be able to rise like a phoenix out of the ashes to a much higher consciousness. And in the long run, that can only be a good thing. You know, as long as he can either hold on to or discover his divine sovereignty. You know, the dark night of the soul can be a very lonely place, but from it, you do gain a lot of wisdom and understanding. So as the masculine goes through his evolution, and that is the unevolved masculine, in the sign of Pisces, he will be bestowed with some beautiful gifts once he faces his own soul and heals that part of him that holds him back from being all that he could be. And I am not referring to the masculine as in the, you know, the male, the man. You know, we all hold the masculine energy within us, just like we all hold the feminine. So over the last few years, it has been the feminine energy that has gone through her dark night of the soul, or her further evolution, you know, where she has had to face up to her tendencies towards neediness and a lack of self-worth. But self-worth is the main theme with both the masculine and feminine energies. And even the feminine is still going through that. So many have come out of that and are in their sacred space. But, you know, there's still some feminines, because you have the unevolved feminine as well. But she's done most of her work now. So now it's the masculine's turn. So self-faith is always needed when the rose-tinted glasses come off, because, you know, it's a time where the realisation hits that we as individuals have to be our own saviours. You know, sometimes we build pedestals around things like religion or relationships or our career. You know, we can tend to rate ourselves on what we have achieved in the material physical world. But really what counts at the end of the day is having a clear conscience and forgiving ourselves if needed. So our sun will still be in opposition to Chiron, but our moon would have moved into Aries, but will be in conjunction to Uranus, who is still in retrograde. So this could be a little bit mind-blowing for some, as they will both be in opposition to Mercury, who's in shadow, and the goddess Juno. So there can be sudden realizations or shifts in consciousness for some, whilst for others there may be, you know, they may be a little bit over-idealistic, you know, especially since the Black Moon Lilith will also be in Aries and in opposition to the goddess Juno. So in all, this does show that the feminine will need to stand strong in her authenticity and strength as the unevolved masculine lashes out. Self-responsibility is one of the aspects that needs to be recognised and healed, and where much clarity can be gained as Pluto turns direct. Mercury went into shadow on the 23rd of September. And I do apologise here for those of you that read my article on FB or Instagram. You know, I did say that Mercury would stay in Virgo throughout his retrograde, but he will actually reach 3 degrees in Libra before he starts his actual retrograde. So, you know, his retrograde starts on the 14th of October, and that will be around 2:10 in the GMT time zone. So when Mercury retrogrades through Libra, it can leave the best of us feeling a little bit out of sorts. So just as grounding will be necessary, so will be centering. And that can be done through chakra alignment meditations. I will link meditations below as usual anyway, but I definitely feel grounding more so than earthing. You know, when we earth, we go to the grass or to the soil. But when we ground, you know, the grounding I feel we need is like standing barefoot on concrete or stone, and also putting both hands onto concrete or a stone wall. You know, that is a perfect technique for grounding. So even just standing on your doorstep barefoot and putting your hands on the walls, you know, if you've got any there. So this is definitely not a time to make important decisions about our lives or the future right now, you know, when it comes to our physical world. Or it could be that we're just too hesitant and not in our self-power. I would say watch out for people pleasing or not speaking your truth because you fear what other people think or how they will react. You know, of course we must remain tactful, but not at the expense of our own authenticity. You know, we must beware of computerized thinking and consider things from all points of view, especially when it comes to humanitarian issues. You know, we have to remember that we have a soul that needs feeding too, not just our inventive ideas. So, you know, we must also think before we speak. So as Mercury retrograde begins, we will have 2 grand kites and 2 T-square aspects. The first kite is ongoing from the full moon, except Venus has moved on and the goddess Vesta has taken her place. So basically the load will lighten slightly, where our pleasures are more based on our divinity rather than our luxuries. So I think prayer or being creative, crafting, you know, whatever your artistic streaks are, I just feel that that will be very good for centering as well. You know, it's also a time though where we really must leave our comfort zones and move out of our inhibitions to truly make the most of, you know, the great opportunities this kite is bringing in. So, you know, some of us may need a little bit of Dutch courage to make certain moves. And this energy is definitely encouraging you to do that. So health in all its aspects is important at this time too. Meditation, exercise and a good diet. Or maybe you need to add some vitamins or minerals to your diet. You know, that will help to bring our energy levels up. Power struggles will become a bit more of a thing, and I see that things will be hotting up, you know, basically, especially for the unevolved masculine energy. And I think the best way to deal with this energy is to be observant and definitely in a place of strong roots. You know, we must stay realistic and strong by being assertive but not aggressive. You know, this T-square emits a strong emotional energy. So if you must release it, but in an appropriate way. Our identities may feel like they're being stripped away bit by bit, but it's a facade that's being stripped away right now. You know, we must rise in our authenticity and allow our light to shine in the name of love. So think positively and realistically. Stay in peace and keep the faith. Much love.